Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, and their organizations prepare to adapt and thrive in a fast-changing world. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP of Business Engagement and Growth at AICPA CIMA. We're the largest body of professional certified accountants in the world. And today we're going to be talking about a super hot topic, the CFO and CAO role in leading AI and Gen AI, with Claire Bramley, CPA, CGMA, and Rachel Crump, a CPA, CGMA, like me, all fresh off our panel at the NAIFS conference in Phoenix, Arizona. So joining me is Claire Bramley. She's the CFO of Teradata, and Rachel Crump, the CAO of Insight. Welcome to the LinkedIn Live show, ladies.
Thank you, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Tom.
It's great to have you both. So back in February, you rocked the North America Finance Executive Summit by Executive Platforms in Phoenix with a sold-out main stage panel on day one titled How Finance Professionals Can Adapt Now to Working with Gen AI. And I want to at least start out with your roles on our Future Finance Leadership Advisory Group that we convened 3 years ago and just had our summit this past December, where Gen AI soared to the second biggest issue facing CFOs and CAOs, just behind digital transformation. So just talk about our impressions of our work with this group, why you think it's important, and what you're getting out of your involvement.
Yeah, I'll start, Tom. Thanks for that. And thanks again for having us here today. So the Future of Finance Leadership Group is a group that I'm really excited to be part of. We are always talking about the hot topics in finance, and it's a very integrated group coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, different industries. And we all know that it's difficult to get everyone together all the time. So the great thing about the forum is you always get debriefed, you always get all the notes and the information, so you never feel like you're missing out. And as you said, the live sessions that we had not that long ago when we're all together were, as always, very informative, really touching on the areas to just challenge us, make us think about what the hot topics are, including generative AI, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about in a minute, but also makes us reflect. You know, it's really good sometimes to go to these sessions, take a step back, reflect, look at what you're doing with your team, what you're working on, and more importantly, how you can learn from others and how you could potentially do things better and differently moving forward. So I've really enjoyed, I've been involved since the very beginning, and I've really enjoyed the experiences that I've got from the overall leadership forum that we have with the Future Finance Leadership Group.
Well, and we're lucky to have folks like you two participating in this as well. So Rachel, how about you? Give us your perspective on that work and what's going on.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. For sure, it's just fantastic to be among a group of folks who are going through some of the same things you and your teams are going through. And Claire mentioned this, but really we hit on the topics that matter most to the group. And so we're, constantly evolving our discussion to adapt to what's top of mind for everybody. But it's a fantastic opportunity in those meetings to get other ideas and perspectives, but it also provides a little bit of a safety net, a group that you can reach out to, when you have something and you need another opinion or set of eyes on something.
Well, and we've had a couple of things. We had the Women in Finance group emerge from last year's summit and literally push for a special session that started this summit out, which was amazing, right? Women in leadership, finance, they call it the sisterhood, which turns out it's meeting another, networking need. But yeah, we talk about talent, we talk about Gen AI, you name it. And I think the other idea is there's a bit of scouting going on, right? Because I think, Claire, you said it, but we're all walking that same journey. Or no, yeah, you said it. Rachel also, we're all walking the same journey, which digital transformation and all the things that are related to it. So that led to both of you joining me at NAIFS, which I thought was amazing. And so that's why we're here is I want you to tell your stories. So Claire, let's start with you at CFO of Teradata. Background and story around what you're doing and why you're leading Gen AI at your company. Then we'll jump in and get you on there, Rachel, with the same thing on your role at Insight.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. As you mentioned, I'm the CFO at Teradata, so clearly covering the finance organization, but I also am very honored to lead the IT, security, and strategy and transformation teams here at Teradata as well. So as a result, I have the opportunity to be at the forefront of everything that we're doing across the company, and particularly in Gen AI. And seeing as we're a technology software company, we have kind of really, got involved heavily in generative AI. We're known for 40-year legacy in AI, ML, analytics. So generative AI for us as a company is definitely in our sweet spot. For me as the CFO, what's important is that we are involved. I see Gen AI as a huge opportunity for all us finance leaders out there to get involved. At Teradata, we're looking at it from a product standpoint and a technology standpoint of how we can support our customers. We are looking at it from an internal perspective, so our effectiveness, what we're doing, how we can do it better and how we can do it more efficiently. And we're also, as you would not be surprised to hear, looking at it very heavily from a compliance, governance, and ethics standpoint. So I think they're the kind of three areas that I would say we talk at Teradata about trusted AI, because we know that it's really important, that kind of ethics around generative AI and being able to trust the data and to trust the insights that you get. So lots to cover there, but I do want to hear from Rachel as well, because she has some great stories to tell about how they're driving generative AI in the finance organization at Insight.
Yeah, Rachel, share your story, and especially the whole idea of the Shark Tank story that you guys came up with to get people in your company using it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Tom. So at Insight, Chief Accounting Officer, so maybe, not an entirely tech-focused role, but at Insight it is. We're a technology solutions integrator, and we really, need to provide for efficient kind of back office support across our organization. And so I really end up playing quite a large role across our internal technology roadmap, which has led to the Gen AI role. It's been over a year now that we started talking about generative AI and what it could do internally with the audit committee, which was a conversation that I was leading, and we identified a couple areas of soul-sucking work that we could automate. But then to get a really broader reach across our entire global finance organization, we had a finance Shark Tank. And so anybody in the finance team globally could submit up to 3 ideas. And we begged, borrowed, and got lots of great prizes to motivate people. And it wasn't just limited to, what they did in their individual role or function, but really how they saw generative AI could really play across the organization. And we just got, it was over 250 almost individual unique ideas. And the IT folks that partnered with us to evaluate the ideas said, hey, they're all viable. They can't all be in the top 10. And, some we may never get to because there could be a software out there already that might do it just a little bit faster, quicker. But to really have that type of broad reach, showed the engagement that people were buying into, instead of worrying about how generative AI may displace me, we tried to change the talk track a little bit and help them be in the driver's seat. And so some of our top ideas, a couple of them have already launched internally out of the IT group. But they came from our procurement analysts and our AP lead. One of them was a knowledge center, and really the ability to just ask anything in a natural language. And whether you're internal, to finance, or in our service delivery organization, or a customer that, wants a copy of a statement or a specific invoice. And so that one has been really powerful for the teams to see. It happens to be technologically one of the easiest ones. I can't speak to that bit, but it was able to launch early and fast. And so for them to already see their ideas out there has actually kind of ginned up a whole nother, they're like, well, I don't need a prize to submit an idea. And so we had to really kind of focus people, same format, but here's where you go with your idea so they can still get evaluated. It's just been really fantastic to kind of launch for us because, as Claire mentioned, we too are a technology company. And so our customers are asking about this. We had to be on the forefront, but for us to internally look at it as well on the forefront is really energizing across the teams for sure.
So that's a story I think that resonated in the audience. I think the other thing that resonated is you two were both relatively or very much early adopters based on the audience responses. What did you hear? As we were sitting there on that big stage, and all the responses to the polls were coming up behind us. What were you both thinking as you saw some of that? What were some of the things that stuck out for you as we were doing that?
Yeah, so I think the initial reaction was there was a number of people that were very early in their journeys or not even started. And I have to admit, I think I was initially surprised, but when I reflected on it during the session and afterwards, maybe it's not surprising because there is a lot of hype around it, but it is sometimes difficult to know where to start. I think, Rachel's just given a perfect example where you don't need to invest huge amounts of money to be able to have an impact. But I think a lot of generative AI projects, and I've seen them been submitted, at my company, they cost millions. And I think finance people are put off by that. They're put off by potentially the size of the investment. They're put off by the compliance part of it, which could also get very complicated. And sometimes just knowing where to start and where potentially they can get a return. And I think that's why you said, Tom, that Rachel's story of just starting small, a small amount of investment, being able to see progress. I think that is a great example. And we've tried to do the same here at Teradata. We've looked at the big investments, but actually it's the small investments that we've been able to move quickly on. We've been able to make progress. We've been able to improve internal efficiency, whether it's with our engineering team, whether it's within our HR team, our customer support, or also absolutely within our finance and IT teams. And I think there's many opportunities out there, as Rachel explained, to be able to make small investments. But I think the feedback that we got live on stage was some people are struggling to know where to start or even how to get started. So I think the more we can share the stories of different companies being successful and where they've started and how they've started small, hopefully will encourage more and more finance people to really take the lead, because I think it is a great opportunity for us as finance leaders to get involved and to help move the company forward in this very exciting time right now. I don't think this is something that's going to go away, honestly. I think this is, it's here, and so it's important that we do get involved and we do help our companies move forward.
Well, and Rachel, let's go on with what did you feel like when you were up on the stage, and were you looking at all the responses? Same kind of question.
Yeah, it was interesting. I too had to reflect a little bit that, working inside a technology company, I think maybe there's just a different lens on it because you have to be first with your clients, right? And so you're already thinking about it. And then when I looked across the responses and looked across the audience, I'm like, yeah, I think that's fair, because you don't have necessarily, in a retail shop or something like that, you don't have the forefront advantage of the technology viewpoint. And so it did feel like Claire and I were maybe a few steps ahead. But I do think sharing the journey and sharing how simple it can be, and, start small and prove it, right? People want to see it work. I think is really, important, but it was very interesting conversation. And, a lot of fun to be able to share the information with people who were hungry for it, right?
Yeah. And we, so between our summit in December and what you guys did at the NAIFS conference, we've got all that in kind of a resource plus other interviews we've done with Gartner and others about the whole CFO, CAO role in Gen AI. Turns out in many cases, we're leading this charge, not just in finance, but in terms of the strategy of the company, right? That's an interesting dynamic for the CFO and CAO today. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, from my perspective, the business want our support. They want our help to be able to move some of these initiatives forward. We have the purse strings often in the company, so we can help show them that these are good investments, that they do make a return, that you can do small and large investments. And help them monitor the return. I think one of the biggest things we've seen with our customers is that they are unsure as to how they will be able to measure the return, or whether they will even see a return from these investments. And so that's in our sweet spot as well. As finance people, we can help work with the business. We can help them understand the investments they're making and the best way to measure the returns on investments. I know we're in month 3 of our fiscal calendar year anyway at Teradata, and I'm already doing reviews of all of the investments that we started to invest in as we exited last year into this year, including generative AI. And we're doing that first set of reviews, that first set of analysis on, are we in line with where we expect it to be? And I think that doing that regularly and sharing that broadly across the organizations give them the confidence and the comfort that we know what we're doing, that we're able to measure it, and that and that if it wasn't going according to plan, that they would get early warnings, and early tripwires to be able to adjust as needed, sort of thing. And I think that's important from a governance standpoint, not just the management team, the leadership team, but to Rachel's point, the board are very interested in this. The audit committee, the full board, they want to know that you've got good governance around what you're doing, as well as you're pushing the boundaries. So I think finance are in a really good situation to help the company through that journey. And it's just about having structure. It's just about trying to be proactive and ensure. And I always say, I work for a data company, but I always say it's really important that we let the data do the talking. We've got to be really careful in this situation that people's gut feels or people's passions don't necessarily take over, and that we really use the data information to help us move forward and to help make the right decisions.
Which makes total sense. Rachel, how about you? How did you get in this leadership role, and what's that look like, do you think, from why we are important in this notion?
Yeah, so I think it kind of first came from me because we've been looking for ways, as we work through our internal technology roadmap, we've been looking for ways to kind of fast accelerate a few small areas, because you can't wait until the very end to see benefits. So are there small steps we can take that aren't throwaway work? And this seemed like an area that could help. Now, I would also say that, to a couple of Claire's points, finance is typically involved in governance and data. And both of those, I think, are at the forefront of this conversation as well. And so I think it was the combination of all three of those points that led me to the role that I play at Insight.
Love it. So the other thing I thought you made a point of, Rachel, two pieces, actually might be kind of before this part of the conversation, but the notion of having your team not worry about being displaced, but seeing AI as a tool that will augment finance. Talk about that. I mean, that's a really good vision of what we need to instill in a lot of finance and accounting folks who quite frankly are afraid of what this could do.
Yeah, I think, it's really about us showing our teams that there is an opportunity to be reskilled. We need to focus on, what is right for the customers, what's right, we're a public company, same as Teradata, what's right for our investors, and how do we tell that story articulately to analysts externally, as well as, to the board as part of the overall strategy. And so I really feel like you have to have people buy in. And if they're so focused, some sense overly on what it is for me. It's human nature, right? I mean, everybody does it in, different contexts, but if we can change the talk track and just show how it helps, it really, that really can drive a difference in getting the adoption. Because if you don't get the adoption, you're never going to get the ROI that Claire mentioned on any of this stuff, right? And, I do think that is important as well. And, at Insight, we have a bit of a way to go in our internal technology roadmap, and showing that throughout this whole thing, the teammates still are our most valuable asset, really will help the change management, because that is going to be 80% of our transformation.
Huge.
The people and the data and the process come long before the technology ever helps you transform. And so if we can't get their hearts and minds around how this helps eliminate soul-sucking work and frees them up to think, right? That is really the conversation that we want to have, internally with our teammates.
Love it.
I have to double down on that, because it's so, I love the word. I've never used it before, but I love it when Rachel talks about soul-sucking work. But it's true. There's so many tasks out there that I'm sure our teams would prefer not to doing. So if we can encourage them to be creative and innovative and bring those ideas forward, I think, to help be able to reduce the amount of time they're doing on those tasks, to help to then be able to take a step back, be the business trusted partner, be able to look at the insights and actions to get from the information. I think all of that is just really, really encouraging for our teams, and we've got to encourage them to do it. And they want to be involved. They really want to be involved. That's what Rachel's seen. That's what I've seen at Teradata. People want to be involved, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, and it sounds like somebody else is agreeing in the back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Someone clearly is. I apologize.
That's okay. So, all right. So I'm going to start winding this down, but you guys, you're nailing it, right? The whole mindset piece. So I'm old enough that I was around when VisiCalc was a big thing. And I'll never forget, there was a Wall Street Journal, I want to say early 80s, that said, VisiCalc and spreadsheets will be the end of the accounting profession. It literally is going to automate all the accountants in the world, because we were all doing those big columns, and right. And the exact opposite happened, right? It blew up the need for accountants, because we could do a lot more in a lot less time. I think AI has the potential to augment us as finance professionals and do the same thing, right? That's what you guys are saying.
Yeah, for sure.
So the other part wasn't, and we'll make this one quick because we're running out of time a little bit, because this is such a great story. McKinsey had a piece recently that said there's only 3 strategic responses to this idea of an inflection point in the 4th or 5th industrial revolution, whatever you want to call it, fueled by Gen AI. They're saying innovation, acceleration, or following fast. So they could be industry pathfinders, industry accelerators, or fast followers. But inaction is not a viable option in the face of these rapid changes. So what do you think about that? Where is your company? I'll tell you where we think we are. But yeah, talk about where you guys are on that. So Claire, let's start with you, Rachel, this time. Where are you in that idea of a industry pathfinder, accelerator, or fast follower?
I think we're going to fit in all 3 categories, depending on your viewpoint, right?
I love it.
We went out first, it's probably been 18 months plus, with a policy around generative AI use at Insight. And we wrote it in such a manner that we could share it externally with clients and others who, had the need or the interest to see what was happening. And so that's why I say we fit kind of in all of the categories.
No.
Depending on where it started, but we needed to start a path for clients. And from a finance perspective, we wanted to be a fast follower. So we raised our hands first and said, let's Shark Tank it. Let's make it a fun competition.
Love it. Well, and I would argue, based on what we heard at NAIFS, where 28% of the audience were in the early awareness stage, 25% hadn't even started yet. I'm going to say you were actually more in an industry pathfinder role overall. Yet I understand all three categories, and I'd say I agree with that. By the way, you need to send me your policy because we're doing the same exact thing. All right, Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I think that's a very similar answer to Rachel. I mean, we already have generative AI products out there for our customers, our existing customers to use. So I think in that standpoint, we're very much kind of industry leading. But one of the learnings we did the policy, we have a governance policy. And, it was written by lawyers and accountants, and so we had this really lengthy document, and people turned around to us and said, can you give us something that we can actually use? Something. So very quickly, we had to turn that into a very simple kind of like, if this happens, you go here, if this, and then we made it much simpler, etc. But that was an interesting learning from day one. We kind of came out with this multi-page document and then realized that actually that's not helpful for anyone. And so had to turn that into a simple to use governance and policy that, people could follow very easily. So we've had the same experiences. But yes, I think depending on where you look at, depending on the function and the type of solution you're looking for, I would say we're probably across all of them as well. I think our products team and our engineers, at the forefront of everything that we're doing. I think IT and some of our governance, we're using it, which is great, which to your point, to some companies probably is considered to be leading. But in our eyes, I think we've still got a lot more work we can do. We're still running pilots. We're still launching new options and activities. So I think still more work to do, absolutely. And I think it will evolve. And I think this is a journey, and it's a multi-year journey. It came upon us really quickly and kind of exploded overnight. That's what it felt like, I think, to many of us. But this is definitely here to stay. It's definitely something we should all be sharing our stories, getting involved in. But we also have got to remember that this is not something that it's going to not going to finish tomorrow. It's going to continue. It's a journey, and it's probably a multi-year journey. So it'll be really interesting to track how we move through this journey, what our roles are as finance leaders, because I do think it's going to be an important one. And I think it is a great opportunity for the finance teams to get involved, to be at the forefront, as we've talked about today, and to help move the companies forward. So it's going to be an exciting journey, Tom, and I'm sure we're going to stay very close to it over the coming the months and years, I'm sure.
Yeah, our group, our Future Finance group, has it on the next agenda. I mean, it's staying on our agenda. It was ranked obviously number 2 as the second biggest issue behind digital transformation. So it's not going anywhere yet. I mean, it rose out of nowhere to that number, which was really astonishing. But so I want to kind of get us to close here in a couple things. I love the fact that I'm going to say both of you are be more like those innovator early adopters. You're based on your peer group. You both are there. So I know you've got all 3 categories. I agree with that, but you're definitely there. For the association, we're looking at being fast followers. We don't want to be on the leading or bleeding edge, but we're also looking at what we can be doing to educate all of our members. So we're working on learning programs like we did at the summit and some other ways of getting people hands-on so you can begin to, because I think you both said what we got to do is get moving, right? We can't ignore this. It's not going away. And if we don't take a lead, it's going to end up disrupting us. That's what I think we see coming at us. So
I think the education, Tom, is really important. I think everybody's knowledge on this subject is very, very different. So I think the fact that the association are investing in education, training, and sharing best practice and leveraging each other, I think is great. It's going to add a huge amount of value. And I think it's going to be very, very important for the finance community and very well received.
Yeah. And again, that's what our group is for, right? This Future Finance group is sharing all these good things, use cases, et cetera. Rachel, final thoughts from you on that notion?
I do think you just have to start, right? You have to start somewhere. And if you're not sure where, find somebody to ask. Listen to a podcast, listen to a webinar. I mean, everybody does like to talk about it, right? Listen to the LinkedIn Live. A lot of good information is out there already, but just start. Don't bury your head in the sand. is what I would say.
I think you're right. Ignoring this is not a good idea. But so I appreciate we are going to post our resources from the talk that you all did at NACE, from what we did with our Future Finance group in December, and more, and a lot of the use cases and the list of Future Ready Lives that we've got in this area as well as others. So we'll post them in the show notes for today. By the way, Claire and Rachel, thank you so much for your time today. And for my audience out there, I want you to connect to these folks. Both of them are on LinkedIn. Rachel Crump, C-R-U-M-P. You'll see her on Insight. And LinkedIn, Claire Bramley, B-R-A-M-L-E-Y, both again on LinkedIn. So you'll be able to identify them and connect and follow us more on this Future Ready Live. We'll be back next Tuesday, or excuse me, let me get my timing down here, right? First and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern. So with that, say bye to our audience, Claire and Rachel.
Thanks very much, Tom. Goodbye.
Thank you.